The Scheme aired on HBO, the documentary chronicling Christian Dawkins, his involvement as a runner, agent, and the pay-for-play scheme in college basketball. Featured in that documentary was Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports, who's also the co-author of Soul Influence, which was kind of the genesis of this whole thing, so to speak. Dan's good enough to join us for a couple of minutes here. Thanks for the time, Dan. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I loved in your piece in Yahoo today where you chronicled talking to Christian Dawkins back in 2018 about Soul Influence and how it was not meant to be a blueprint. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on that story?
Yeah, 20 years ago we put this book out, Soul Influence, and it was kind of an entertaining, investigative look at all these characters that run AAU programs and how two companies are fighting over players and all the different stuff. And the last thing I thought was that maybe 5 or 6 years later, some like seventh grader would get a hold of the book, read it, and say, I want to be one of these guys. So I said, Christian, this was not meant to be a life guide, a how-to guide. Okay, it was like a cautionary tale, and he kind of laughed. Whether you like the movie or not, Christian Dawkins is a very, very funny, interesting, charismatic guy, and he's pretty funny to chat with. He's very likable, even if you don't like how it all ended up.
I mean, Dan, he's influenced some of the most powerful names in college basketball and vis-a-vis sports. So you'd have to think there's something about his personality that is magnetic. I'm curious for you. You participated. I'm curious seeing it. You probably saw a screening before it aired last night, but having participated and then seeing the finished product, what was your reaction to the film?
You sit down for an interview for a couple hours, and that's all you really know about it. So I think I was surprised I was in it that much. There really weren't that many voices in the movie. It's mainly Christian telling his story. He's got his attorney and his parents and me and like Fred Van Vliet for like 5 minutes or something, 1 minute. I don't know. So it's really a story that's way more just Christian telling his story than maybe I was expecting. But he is a fairly charismatic guy. They certainly go through how they saw the case to be. I certainly agree with some of their takes on the case. I thought the entire thing was a little bizarre to even attempt. And obviously I think the conduct of some of the FBI was, bizarre. And I just didn't really get why, if you're going to do this case, why you end up arresting anonymous assistant coaches, middlemen like Christian Dawkins or Jim Gatto from Adidas and things like that. Why not go all out on this if you're actually going to do a 3-year FBI investigation? So I agree with a lot of their take on it. That's about it. I wasn't expecting to be so much Christian talking, but that's how they did it.
And Dan Wetzel's our guest, Yahoo Sports. He's on Twitter at Dan Wetzel. I'm glad you went there, Dan, because that leads me into one of the things I wanted to discuss is if you feel, knowing what you know about this, that had they had participation from the FBI, the NCAA, any of these schools, how might our perception of what happened have been different if it wasn't, as you put it, just Christian and his lawyer telling their story?
Well, I think all 10 of the people that were convicted or had plea agreements had a story to tell. So this is Christian. It might be different if you're talking about Book Richardson at Arizona or Tony Bland at USC or Manoush Sood, a financial advisor in New Jersey or something like that. I didn't know whether they were doing all the people. They were telling it more widespread. This was Christian Dawkins' story, but he is one of 10 that were really impacted by this. And so I think you'd have different perspectives. I'm not sure it would change dramatically how things are. I just think this is a story of how Christian perceived it, what happened to Christian, what he went through, his life, all of that. And, so I think it's not an inaccurately told story as far as I can tell, but it's certainly a narrow one through one of the numerous people involved in this.
Was there anything and the answer may be no to this, Dan, I'm just curious. Watching it, was there anything that Christian said or a manner in which he said it that led you to believe, like, I don't know about that? Like, that may be the stretch. where someone might object?
I'd have to watch it again before I really make that kind of level of a statement. I certainly think that Christian was someone who knew. I don't think he knew his behavior was illegal. I just think he knew that what he was trying to do was cut the line a little bit or something like that, maybe cut a corner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really, if you listen to Christian and you watch him and you've met him, like I think if Christian Dawkins had gone to college out of high school and then gone to law school, he's 27 now. At 27, with his skill set, his communication skills, his ability to be a people person, and just some of the basic building blocks that kind of life makes you take, even though maybe it's not needed, he would be poised to be a big-time NBA agent. And I think he just tried to get there so fast without doing some of the basic things. And it worked. I mean, he's helping sign first-round draft picks at 20 years old, but at some point you can't just run everything so quickly. He flew so high, and he was desperate for the funding for his agency that he fell into the trap of the undercover FBI agent.
A couple more minutes here with Dan Wetzel of Yahoo. He's on Twitter at Dan Wetzel. Do you, especially with the perspective of having written Soul Influence 20 years ago, do you see any changes in how things are done from then with regard to the payment of players and call it whatever you want, the seedy underbelly? Do you see any material changes from 20 years ago to now?
Not really. There's 50 Christian Dawkins operating right now. Christian just got caught up on a wiretap because he knew this guy Marty Blazer turned him in, and they got the wiretap. But there's 50 guys like Christian Dawkins. You have to know those people if you're a college basketball coach. So Christian didn't control all the players in America. He barely controlled the good ones. I mean, he only had a couple guys, and they were not the top 20 players in the country. Brian Bowen Jr. is like the 30th ranked recruit out of Saginaw. So there's been hundreds of Christian Dawkins through the years, and there'll continue to be Christian Dawkins as long as you have a system that, you know, these kids have value. These young players have value, and it's naive to pretend they don't. Adidas wanted to pay Brian Bowen Jr., again, like I said, 30th best recruit in America. Good player, obviously, but this is not Zion Williamson. They wanted to pay him $20,000 to play summer basketball for them. Now, you could look at that and say, that's crazy. Why would you pay a high school sophomore $20,000 to play AAU basketball? That's his value. Adidas is a good company. Adidas knows how to do their job. They saw that value. So as long as that's how capitalism works, you are what you're worth whatever they're willing to pay you. But because of this amateurism, you drive that underground because you say, no, the wheels of capitalism has to stop because of the NCAA. Someone's going to exploit that. And as long as that's the system, someone's going to do that exploiting, and that creates the need for Christian Dawkins. And that's what creates the need for under-the-table payments and secret phone calls and all these different things. And so nothing's changed. Nothing's going to change. It's the exact same thing pretty much. It's just different names and different figures, and it'll be that way 20 years from now, too, if it doesn't change.
Would you have liked to have been at that party in Vegas funded by the FBI? Some gambling, some bottle service. That sounded like a hell of a time, man.
I'll tell you what, when they say the FBI agents, there's a misuse of funds in Vegas, that's probably not like you ordered too big of a steak.
Which is possible in Vegas.
Per diem at lunch. Yeah.
Oh, man. Like there was.
Yeah, I think they could figure out how to misuse funds in Vegas. I'm glad I was nowhere near anything to do with the FBI.
That's
in this.
Yeah, I can understand how that starts to get the cold sweats and the sphincter check. All right, Dan, I got two more things.
Okay.
One, obviously people here are interested in the Will Wade aspect of it.
Sure.
And Scott Woodward today, LSU's AD, released this two-line statement essentially saying nothing's changed, we'll continue to cooperate. Any reaction to the school, LSU or any of the schools' reaction?
I predicted as much. I think LSU at this point is sort of almost pot committed to Will Wade once they kept him last year. and they basically said, all right, there's a transcript. We printed a story with the transcript of that call, and they said, and then Will Wade wouldn't meet with him. And it's still somehow Will Wade kept his job. Now, look, I don't care where you work. Something goes wrong at work, and your boss comes and says, hey, I want to discuss what happened. And you say, I'm not talking to you. You're generally going to be fired. Okay? Will Wade somehow kept his job. And they basically said, we're going to hope this tape doesn't exist or it's not going to come out. I mean, we got a lot of, like, you guys made it up. Like, we didn't make it up. I'm not ruining my career to make up a story like that. Of course it was accurate. But at this point, I think they're just like, we don't care. And we're in with this guy at this point. What are we going to do now? And so it gets played on HBO. It gets played on HBO. I think LSU's just fully all in with Will Wade. They committed to him, and the NCAA may bury him because of that. I got no idea. I don't care. But I don't know how you dump him at this point. And so I think they're just in. So I expected LSU to do nothing on this, and I don't think they'll do anything going forward. I just don't think they care about the NCAA rules like this or what is on this call.
Dan, do you foresee, and this is a 20-year perspective, right? Going back to the fact that you wrote Soul Influence, you participated obviously in this story and looking for it. Do you foresee, and maybe it's the name, image, and likeness thing, but any change as a result of this within the NCAA?
I don't think this changes anything. I think it chips away at it. I mean, I don't think anyone watches that documentary or looks at this whole story and comes away with a better impression or more commitment to amateurism. I think you would look at it and go, this is ridiculous. Some people, now some may be unchanged, but I think some people were like, this is stupid. We need to change this. Like these were not crimes that these people committed. We have people going to prison for giving people money. We had a guy who stole money get a plea deal to turn in people who gave people money. That's basically what happened here. One guy stole millions. The other guy gave away thousands.
He did make a movie with Ving Rhames in it.
Yeah, they did do that. It looks bad, didn't it?
It looks so bad.
I don't think any changes. Name, image, and likeness would change this absolutely, because then if Adidas wants to pay the next Brian Bowen $20,000 to play AAU basketball, he can just do it. If they want to bolster their investment at Louisville and say, we're going to pay you to go to Louisville, they can just do it. And we can pretend and say, that's not fair, that's not right. Guess what? It's happening. This is what's happening. This is what coaches have to do. Will Wade has to do these phone calls. That's what they call good recruiting. I mean, there's not really a way around it. You either have players or you don't. And this is how you have to get players. We can pretend it's still 1953, but it isn't. So, again, I've been writing about this for 20 years. Nothing's changed.
It's a really good perspective, man. I appreciate you sharing it. Before you go, Epic Athletes, this is pretty cool. I didn't know that you had done this project, but these are sports books for kids. We got it up here on the screen for those watching on TV. I'll tweet the link as well. Would you explain this?
Yeah, they're like sports bios for middle school readers, sort of. Maybe like third grade, eighth grade, depending. A little 100-plus page biography. Stephen Curry, Tom Brady, LeBron James, Simone Biles, Alex Morgan. We have a whole bunch of them. If your kids are like mine, too much screen time right now, maybe we can get them reading a book. They're fun, they're uplifting. And, books are hard sells, but there are a lot of kids that I grew up reading these types of books. I think a lot of people did. They kind of got away from writing them. And so we brought back this whole series of them. They're fun. They're easy to read, but there's a little heft to them. And they're all really inspiring stories. These are all really, good people. And there's a focus on kind of what they were like as middle schoolers. Because you look and you go, Steph Curry's superstar, but it was like, you were too small. No one thought you'd make the NBA. Like Serena Williams, right? Incredible. But she was not as good as your older sister. Tom Brady didn't even get off the bench as a freshman in high school. There's a lot of things that are a lot more relatable than you think out of these star athletes.
It's a really fascinating concept. Epic athletes, about 100-page books, middle school readers. The link is in Dan's bio. I'll tweet it out as well. Where's the best place to go get this? Amazon, Barnes & Noble, best place?
I would, either of those. Go online. I don't think you can go to a store right now.
That's actually a great point, Dan. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So
don't go to the store. We got social distancing.
Practice social distancing. And if you got a middle schooler who enjoys reading or would like to know about some of these sports heroes, Epic Athletes, Amazon, Yahoo, you can get the link in Dan's bio, at Dan Wetzel on Twitter, and we'll tweet it out as well. Hey, man, I appreciate a couple of minutes. Thanks so much for your time, man. We'll catch up down the road.
Anytime. Take care, guys.